Occultists Anonymous and our Into the West Mage Chronicle. No, our Mage Chronicle Into the West, one of those. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate having you
The
all.
Chronicles of West Darkness.
That's one of those, like, put that down as a name for the next actual play, or maybe our spin-off. Anyways, thank you for joining us, and a special shout out to our patrons who support us so very much. Thank you to Adele, Alice, Aiden, Al, Alexander, Allstrit, Bernie, Buck, Chris, DNA, Hi, I'm Paul, Doc, Emil, Ethan, Jeff, George, James, Camo, Cat Feathers, Klaus, Live Love Lesbian, Milo V3, Moku, Mozart D Minor, Nexus, Nick, Other Guy, Perry, Foog, Polkadot, Hubris, Porter, Puppeteer, Riafio, Sean, Shixara, Starfish, Terran, Terry, Thomas, Verhexed, Vincent, Vortex, and Zoltan. Did I say Verhexed and Vortex? Okay, yep, I did say both. Thank you all so much for your support. It really does mean a lot, especially when I'm sitting there after a hurricane has hit and I'm like, must record, and then the power shows up on Saturday and not Friday. Jerks. So on the plus side, we're not missing a week. On the downside, yes, we are missing Chris this week. So hopefully they will be joining us again next week. Yes. When we last left the Coven, they had squeaked by, skin of their teeth, and managed to just barely awaken Catherine Moody as an Acanthus, because what I needed was another Fate Mage.
You always need more. Come on now.
It's not like I had control over the situation or anything and could have made her awaken as anything else. So yes, storytellers, yes, we know we do this to ourselves. You invent, the goblin named Boblin, and the next thing you know, he's the party mascot.
The party. Yeah.
Just be careful. Though in this case, Craig was just like, "Oh, we're married," and it's like, well, I guess we'll have to bring Catherine along. So it's been a couple days. Some stuff has moved forward. We've had Catherine go up to the Maelstrom with Isabel, and Legba and Babasera investigated a Goetic entity place, and kind of flexed on and explored some of the darker side of Babasera's psyche, and more or less kind of like said, no, I don't need this thing enabling some of those darker thoughts. I'm gonna leave that alone. But it is a little my thing. Meanwhile, Max was like, I'm just gonna go on a walk. What's going on up over here? What's this? What's the big deal about this one little spot on this rotten wood? Let me look up here. Oh, that is a terrible, terrible thing. Heartache is back.
6 hours later.
Yep. After a subjective few seconds, 6 seconds, we'll say, and realizing that, I can't dig deeper into this. I literally don't understand enough to begin looking deeper. And but I did get a bunch of emotions pulled from this thing, more than merely heartache. But you did get the same thing that Legba had seen with this amalgamated mind, not a hive mind, amalgamated, merged consciousnesses. It's very.
I know what you're talking about, but maybe could you explain it for the audience a little bit better?
What do you mean?
The hive mind and an amalgamated mind.
Hive mind meaning everybody is thinking the same thing, or in like the insect world, their minds that are completely subservient in service to the elder queen kind of thing.
This would be more like Geth from Mass Effect, where they build consensus. They have individual processes.
Yes, Legion.
So that is actually how it works in insects. It's just in fiction, oftentimes a hive mind is thought of as subordinate minds that contribute to one overall effort, as opposed to individual minds that are all uniquely valid or important within the context of the composite intelligence.
That's fair. Yeah,
Because
because
working together on the same
because
wavelength.
ants will throw out their queens, won't they?
Well,
Or
what
maybe
happens
it's
is
bees.
it's bees, all social insects. The reproductives are within the center of the nest for the most part, right? There are a few situations like bees swarming and things like that, or ants moving. But anyway, so they're inside, so they don't see what's on the outside. And the workers protect them. Includes termites as well. Protect them because the health and the vitality of the colony is dependent upon their ability to reproduce. So all of the other individuals are the ones who are perceiving stimuli on the outside and actually making decisions. And then they influence the ways that the reproductives will then send out pheromones and other chemicals and get that information distributed. But worker bees are the ones who are choosing where to forage. Worker bees are the ones who are choosing where to put the young. Worker bees are also choosing kind of when to swarm. And ants and termites are also doing something similar. So,
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah. Hi, if you're new here, or I mean, it's been a minute since Ralph talked about bugs, but yes, Ralph is a bug guy.
This is flexing around.
I mean, you want to hear about them? You want to hear about them? I'm getting ready for.
We'll stable it. Yeah, we'll put it
on a brief aside. I'm getting ready for a presentation about the human consumption of insects in August. So,
always
anybody
good.
hit me up if you want to hear about eating insects around the world. I got lots of good tips, lots of good ones to eat. I'll tell you which ones are tasty and which ones aren't. I do, yeah.
Come by Discord,
Some of my own, some of others.
www.eatinto.space.
Let me know, folks.
So in this case, this is not a hive mind. This is, as Craig said, it is a bunch of minds in tandem, effectively in one entity, right? As opposed to it being distributed. So yes, the Geth individuals, like our good boy Legion, who should have been in Mass Effect 3. Anyways, yes, that is much more of what we see when we interpret and dig into Heartache. So yeah, it's been a couple days since then. We have had some news come in from about the area. Notably, Jules, eavesdropping, I guess, in Congress is definitely hearing and seeing. Well, I guess just hearing a lot of stuff about the newly created, just the past couple of years, Republican Party that's been really coming to the fore. Various different leaders. This one guy named Abraham Lincoln has been pushing a bunch of stuff and leading the abolitionist movement. Of course, you've got different sides of that movement. You got some folks who are really just very pleasant folks who are like, oh yes, we need to do away with slavery because it's slowing down the white man's progress. The things that you research and find out when looking up Abraham Lincoln. And then you find Abraham Lincoln who's like, all men are created equal. That doesn't mean that they're the same. It's just they should all be treated equally. Yeah. It's like, oh, yes. Okay, Abraham Lincoln. Thank you, buddy. Please wrestle some more folks and challenge them to duels. Love that guy. And then more locally, we're also hearing from a Comey who, amongst her connections, because she has a cabal, but it is more widespread across the various other communities of Native Americans across different tribes and stuff like that. She is among all of them. They're not congregated in one tribe or group moving together. They're kind of distributed, and they've started to solidify promises and alliances. In some cases, just handshakes and promises. In other cases, magical oaths to one another. Is like, hey, we're noticing this expanse not only in the westward expanse of America culturally, but also there's more Diamond Order and Seer mages who are coming around, and for the most part the Diamond Order are like, oh, you're studying this mystery, that's yours, we'll leave it alone. But this other thing that you're not looking at, we're gonna come over here and look at that. even though it's in your territory, it's in your area, but you're not looking at it, you're not using it right now. It's like, we need to organize and have some communication amongst ourselves. So they bring that up to you all here in Purgatory Bluff, of like, hey, and especially because you all are stationary, you all are right on this western border of the approach, because you are on the eastern side of the Indian territories, quite literally, as we discovered. So they're like, hey, we're probably going to start leaving messages occasionally with y'all, or using you all as a bulletin board of information. So I ask y'all, what might that look like in Purgatory Bluff?
Feels a little worried about if they're starting to make use of us, like make use of services, that they're kind of embroiling us in their shit, and they would be concerned about that. We don't want to become targets for whatever skullduggery they're up to.
Yeah, so I mean, hence why I bring this up. Like, are there favors asked in response? Are there oaths that you're like, whoa, hang on? But of course, there's the whole idea that, standing with the status quo stands with the oppressor.
I think it's fine just as like an exchange of information. Like, if they're leaving, if we become sort of a switchboard for them, we can know everything. And I mean, we're not like their messengers. It's just kind of, you
Correct.
can,
You don't have the personnel to be messengers.
So yeah, let's do it that way. Like, they can leave messages with us, but we make no guarantees that anything they leave with us will be kept secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll do your best, but
Legba would also share with them that if they are implying that Legba is going to be a custodian of this liminal threshold in communication between them, then they would be intrinsically invoking his responsibility to protect that threshold. So if any of them want to have some independent interactions with the indigenous people without Legba necessarily feeling responsible for ensuring that they aren't harmed, then they can't involve him. Like, if they come and leave a message and it leads to a conflict, Legba will necessarily be protecting them.
Yeah.
Regardless of who's in the right.
Right. This is more because it's primarily for y'all. It's going to be on the indigenous parties and some of these other.
Oh, they're leaving messages with us.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood. Oh, cool. Yeah. No. That's easy. Especially with Metropolis.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, especially with Metropolis. With Legba status in Metropolis, they need to get something to anybody. Oh, it's easy. You can just go right into the astral and send it to some representative of the diamond.
Yeah. No, this is not for communicating with the diamond. This is about communicating about what the diamond might be up to, what the seers might be up to. Hey, or Comey, as an example, says, hey, I'm going to go meet up with this guy. I don't know which order he's from, but he's definitely European. And he's wanting to make, some deals, and they're making some offerings of alliance and stuff like that. So I'm going to go meet up with him. If I'm not back in a little bit, let my cabal know that I'm,
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that's totally cool.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Legba would, in that regard, also offer an impartial location in the astral if that's something they ever wanted to choose.
That definitely takes something for Comey. She's like, I had not thought about that, especially because, and I imagine Legba brings up, hey, Purgatory Bluff is under 24-hour guard.
Yeah.
Because even when, specifically in the astral, because Legba is literally there.
Yeah.
During, so, I guess not.
Oh,
always.
yeah, he moves it around. Not always. Yes. Fair enough.
But yeah, yeah.
Well,
There's
the versions of him.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's the astral, and then there's the Legba in the astral. It's like, hang on, which one am I talking to? Yes. Like, never mind. Just make sure somebody knows this. Yeah. But Comey, brings it like that's actually, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Both the idea of, oh yeah, we can visit Purgatory Bluff in the astral as long as we can find a good place to meditate for most folks. But also the fact that they themselves can communicate and meet in the astral and find some safe places or clandestine rendezvous in the astral. It's like, hey, let's go meet, over there in the astral concept of red. Just like, exactly. Yeah, okay, cool. And everybody suddenly starts wearing trench coats and fedoras. The Pink Panther starts playing because that's what popped into my head. That's not actually the right, but yeah. So there's a lot of that kind of interaction, and yeah, there's definitely like things are starting to stir up. Like there's been Max is a perfect example. Helena is a perfect example of, yeah, listen, not feeling the Diamond Order anymore. This isn't us. And shifting away, and now more are doing that, and because of that, the Diamond Order and the Seers are coming back and going, hey, we see this population increase that's happening. Your numbers are, your roster is growing, and we need to start treating you more appropriately, especially as by the nature of the westward expansion, we're also putting you in a more compact space where you all are talking more and sharing information, and certain stories start to slip out more and more. It's like, oh, hang on. These guys aren't necessarily our friends or don't have our best interests in mind. Or if you make an oath, make sure you get it bound in magic twice, right? Kind of stuff. So, okay, good stuff. Yeah. So some of that has been going on the past couple days. Isabel has been taking the lead on some of that, especially as she's the sheriff. A lot of folks just coming through town. It is not in any way unusual for the sheriff to step out from her office. Yeah. To greet every visitor who comes through town. Makes an easy excuse for her to meet up with everybody.
Yeah. Know everybody's face and name. Second they get there. That's good. Ask a question real quick about information and context that are coming through. This might also be relevant to Sheriff Isabel. And what about the dogs? That one point of contact with the wild dogs roaming around, sniffing up stuff.
I mean,
like the book has.
Right. For the most part, you have not heard anything unusual coming around in the physical realm, right? Everything seems more or less normal. There's a couple other, well, you heard it on the human side first about some of Ike's cows going missing, and everybody was like, boo-hoo. Your dogs do bring up that weren't us. And that there's other stuff out there, and might have been by the area recently and have left. But I mean, you get the
strange smells. Don't know what. Not
mental
us.
Image of large predator spore.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they're like,
that's useful.
Something was around, and we were like, no, we're good. We didn't come looking around. So, one of those things to, just put a pin in. For
that's useful.
Yep.
Things we wouldn't notice on our own.
Correct. So yeah, like I said, it's been a couple days. It's been busy, and the appointed time has come up to meet up with the Liberators in the astral. And the whole squad rolling up. Sans Isabel.
Yep.
She and Catherine are manning the fort or town. Maybe they're visiting the fort. I don't know. We'll check with Chris next week. As I scroll down and find my notes. Where are them liberators at?
They request to meet in Legba's realm. Do I remember that correctly?
Well, it was ambiguous. We determined that it was a place that you would have a hard time not being yourself in.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, someplace in the Temenos. But actually, I'm going to kind of put it to the three of you.
Cool.
Is there a specific place that might be interesting to meet that primarily background and backdrop to the you're not a spy, are you? No, are you? Kind of meetup that we have. Yes, I have trench coats and fedoras in my head right now. So,
well, to get away from the trope of Spy Park Central, we do a river, meet on the bank of a river somewhere in the.
Yeah. All right.
I like that. Their feet in the stream as though washing away any potential disguise.
Like that. Yeah. So we we meet at the Nile.
All right.
There, and it is the Nile as it is in the Temenos, which means it is beautiful. It is life-giving. It is full of crocodiles. They are massive. And one of I think Legba, you can do I know him from work as Sobek strides through the waters. And I think Sobek is the guy where Papa Legba is there in his guise as Papa Legba. And if I remember, Baba Sarah looks very much the Baba Sarah crone in the Temenos. What does Helena look like in the Temenos?
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
I know we're kind of springing this on Ash, so give her a second.
I mean, probably just like her idealized mage self. She still looks. I feel like her idealized mage view is still very angel focused. She has shifted a bit more from the Sword of God's Wrath or whatever to a basically a Great Pyrenees.
Sure.
But she still carries herself that way. She's her nimbus is an aura shining.
I dig it. We'll get to her Amnion later if it comes up. But talking about Great Pyrenees, now I'm kind of imagining, does she have traditionally you have the big white wolf pelt or coat or something? Yeah. Where it's just guys, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of how I want this to show up, but they have spiked collars.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Everyone's just okay.
I feel like it probably looks like the a collar on her dress, but it's metal and thorny.
I dig that. Yeah. I also like the fact that we've moved forward enough in Helena's personal story and her progression of not doing this thing. I like this thing better. The meme. And so yes, the three of you there on the shores of the Nile, which as you watch, you can see occasionally rise and fall flooding plains, green grass, probably not actually grass, but crops growing. And then yes, Sobek himself, not exactly the god of the Nile, I know, but he kind of runs stuff with the Crocs, man. And he's also kind of one of my faves. So,
let's do it then. Yeah.
So, strides by, and there is the I don't think he stops to chat, but there's the nod of recognition to Papa
Mm.
Legba.
Mhm.
And as that happens, and he continues his stride through the Nile, there is the sound of, gunpowder going off in sequence.
Mm.
The crack of a firearm level of
Mhm.
gunpowder, not a bomb. And what looks like 4 revolutionary 1776 soldiers appear and take a kind of kneeling, firing position, kind of looking in your direction. The 3 of you will recognize that these are not people; these are Goche.
Mhm.
And they're watching, they're scanning, their guns kind of draw in and hem you in. They're not so rude as to point directly at you, but they're like, we're
Mhm.
pointing in your general vicinity and watching you.
Mhm.
And then a moment later, one of them, there's a shift. Maybe tingles the peripheral mage sight, because I don't know that technically passing your senses back and forth to a familiar would count as a supernatural event, but it does.
Mhm.
And then a actual mage appears in, I would, we'll say a toga.
Mhm.
Very Athenian Greek kind of thing. Just the design is just a little bit off from Roman, and steps forward and says, "Well, you're obviously Legba,
Indeed.
and your 2 companions."
This is Baba Sarah. This is Max.
Baba Sarah will nod her head ominously, not intentionally, just
Right, it's just what she does. Yeah. Literally can't help it. Sorry.
Mix is just standing very, very tall and still,
Very guard
uh,
dog.
put together. Yeah, and just like incline her head a little bit.
I like it. Cool. Um, uh, he, I guess we'll flat out say, because it's not too difficult to tell. Sorry, hang on, finding his name. Should have had these organized a bit better.
Mhm.
But yes, he says, for this meeting, you can call me Fado.
Well
Yes.
met, Fado.
Thank you. I will admit some trepidation, as does, well, all of my colleagues. And like, you can see this guy, like, even if you are meeting in the Astral Witch, if you all threw a bunch of spells at him and
Mhm.
destroyed him, he'd be back home, soul shocked, having a bad day, but would be fine. But
Yep.
this is definitely an elevated, less level of, I guess nervousness is appropriate. He's not scared, but he's like, he's wary.
He's apprehensive.
Yes. Why were you seeking us out?
To aid you in your quest. It seems our paths have converged. Like rivulets trickling down a mountain.
He looks to the Nile. He says, into a great rushing river. Wonderful. Poetic.
Big smile.
What quest do you think that we are on?
He says,
Well,
you
we
see,
may not.
good.
We may not know your actual end goal, but the effects that we see coincide with the effects that we produce. There's certainly room for collaboration there.
You are still speaking poetically and vaguely. What is it that you are wanting to do with us collaboratively? Our name is clear in what our purpose is.
Magba swells a little bit, takes a deep breath, and then turns to Max to make sure he's not going to interrupt Max.
Oh, we'll
And then he says, "We've run foul of ones who keep people in chains. It is no longer of our interest to permit the serpents to continue their dastardly deeds, including keeping people in human bondage. And he says, I found their corresponding location in the Temenos."
You have found where the serpent's lair is in the Temenos?
He leans and he says, "Perhaps I'm misspeaking. I found a location that corresponds to one who I believe belongs to them and is associated with their enslavement."
Do you name drop Sir Lucan?
Yeah, and then he's going to say, "I happened upon a well-manicured astral representation of a plantation guarded by Sir Lucan. I gave him my word that I would not personally return. I did not assure him that no one else would. However, the one thing he said when I arrived, to his surprise, was that he had told the liberators that they should never come back or he would kill them. Seemed mostly bluster to me, but as at this point a true and comfortable astral denizen, perhaps that threat has greater weight for another less capable as I."
He nods, and he's definitely smiling when he hears the enunciation on, "I promise I personally wouldn't return." And he nods and smiles. He's like, "I see." And so you found the astral representation, and then, so it burning down was also you?
Ah, you heard.
Oh, we were watching. Well, indirectly. We were aware of.
Ah. Yes. Although I can't take credit for the fire.
Oh.
Our cabal does take credit for the destruction.
So if you did not set the fire, who did?
They did.
So the plantation is useless now. Did you drum up any sympathy connections?
He smiles. And of course he then looks at Baba, Sarah, and Max to make sure he's not preventing them from having an opportunity to speak before he continues. And he says, "We found a great many things. However, as a matter of, he says, what does he say? He says, in keeping with the intrinsic instability of such interactions, you have invited us to this place because you did not trust me to be acting truthfully. There yet remains the possibility that you are not who we hope you to be. So before I share any of that which we intended to perhaps discuss with the people we wish to talk to, I would like some assurance that you are who we believe you to be."
That's fair. I truthfully hadn't thought anybody would have the daring to call themselves liberators and go to a meeting like this without actually being one of us, but that's fair. How can I prove that I'm a liberator? Have you met others of us?
No.
Do you know our call sign?
No.
Our secret handshake?
No.
our symbols of office?
No.
You can definitely see like he is now, playing. So how would you care to tell that I am a liberator?
Well, there are arcane ways.
There are.
There are also perhaps others a bit indirect. How about we go to a place? No, actually, he wouldn't say it because they're not going to do that. He would say, oh, this is what he says. He says, the liberators must have some representation in the astral. Even the serpents, how elusive they are in their serpentine ways, have representation in the Temenos. Let me, and he like puts his fingers together and he says, it's not exactly smell. Let me perceive you. He says it with in high speech. And compare that perception to your representation in the Temenos. I would trust that.
But that would require me to give you access to our lair in the Temenos.
No.
No.
I am Legba. I am he. I could summon. I could call a Goche.
Very
that represents
well.
you. And to do so, I will need some substance of you that would match that which I aim to call. Hence, my asking for permission to perceive you. Perhaps you're unfamiliar with one such as I who must act on principle.
Well, specifically,
this is not a guise. He says, this is not a guise. This is who I am. And as such, if I am to violate who Legba is, it will cause me dire consequences.
He nods. He says, very well, I believe you. So long as you make no action to perform a different practice, then our meeting will continue.
He nods. So Legba is going to perform an improvised spell. This is a mix of prime and mind. True astral representation, meaning like true astral scent, some kind of thing like that. You can think of it that way. He wants to take a big old sniff of who this person is. And then Legba would think it's simple and trustworthy from Legba's perspective. If he then tries to call, what is an astral echo of this that's floating around? Does that Goetia kind of smell like this? You know, he's like...
So this, and then summoning a Goetia or creating a Goetia
Summon.
Of that type. Okay.
He's going to try and summon one.
Oh, yeah, I guess you are in the Temenos. Yeah, you should be able to summon. Yeah, okay. Sure.
Yeah,
I like that.
There's got to be one floating around. Please come. I want to sniff you. These kind of smell similar, you know? You know, kind of thing in comic books, Wolverine sniffing people, nose are in disguise. But in this way, he's like, well, you're not going to give rise to a Goetia that smells radically different. So that'll be enough. And of course, Baba Sarah and Max are absolutely free to impose any other means to feel comfortable or interject.
I was just going to question them about who they've liberated. You call yourself liberators. Show me.
That's pretty cool.
And what do you do with the liberated?
Good question.
Yeah. Turns out they're not good people. We liberate you from the mortal coil.
Liberate you from the pain of this existence.
Yeah, it's the quickest
That's
way to get out. Yeah. Give me 1 second here. I have
Sure.
a character in the background.
Awesome.
Yeah. So to step through this, because those spells are well within your right. When you summon forth a spirit of this flavor, like without delving into it too much, well, he looks similar to Theodos. Grecian, Mediterranean. Grecian. Whereas Phaedo looks Athenian. The gentleman who appears before you looks ancient Spartan.
Ooh.
Sword on his belt. As you summon him forward, do you include the like reach for giving commands, or is it just merely please come here?
There is a command.
Okay.
No violence, please. I you know how Legba approaches these things, right? It is not a command in the sense of I'm not going to tell you to do something. I'm going to give you a forbiddance, right? Like a prohibition. He's going to insist upon a prohibition.
Of violence.
Yes, prohibition of violence.
I like that. Yeah. So he appears, and draws a blade, Spartan sword, and like doesn't bring it up or draw it or point it at anybody, but like, I am here, I am armed, and like looking about, and was like, who summons me? Like he knows it's you, right? But it's more of the like, who are you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I am he who summons you, Theodos. I am Legba.
Oh, he's not Theodos. Bear in mind, this is
no.
Oh,
fair enough. But it's a Goche, right? And Legba's assuming that his name is Theodos. If it isn't, that's fine.
Right.
He's addressing him as Theodos. He uses the name Theodos. You know how it works for Legba. Legba's thinking that if that's your name, this is this.
That's your Goche. Yeah,
sure.
That's your Goche's name, right? And the whole idea was the sniff test, right? So
sure,
he's going to address him that way. He could be wrong, but that's his assumption.
Yeah, I get you. I'm with you now. Yeah.
Cool. So he says, I am he who summons you, Theodos. I am Legba, the guardian of the crossroads, the opener of ways, the great elocutioner. It's ironic that I messed up the word elocutioner.
That's got to be canon. It's too good.
Yeah, right there. And he says, I wish to confirm that he who gave rise to your being is who he claims to be.
Dig it. As I scramble about here real quick. Making sure I'm looking at these names correctly. Yeah. But he's like, no, I am not Theodos. Man, I'm gonna butcher this. But my name is Lycurgus, lawgiver.
Like with smiles. He says, I greet you and acknowledge you, Lycurgus, lawgiver. And he turns back to Theodos and just waits.
Theodos sits back and like arms crossed, is like watching this, trying to see how this is going to prove anything, right?
Yeah. And then Legba looks at Theodos and says, it is okay that you do not wish to give us the name you go by in most circles.
I'm very interested. This is what summons based off of my essence, because that is also not my name. But apparently I am reflected in this man.
Do you
Unfortunately, my
This is your
go ahead.
This is your representation in the Temenos.
I see, and I wish my schooling had covered more. Sparta? Lycurgus turns and says, "The greatest nation on." I almost said the greatest nation in America. Yeah, but yes, the greatest nation of the Mediterranean, of the Great Sea, whatever would be appropriate, to catch everybody else up. Lycurgus is the one who told Philip II of Macedonia,
Oh.
hey, set all those Athenian slaves free now that we've conquered Athens.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Sparta, of course, kept their slaves, but yes. Yeah. So a little quick, you guys have a conversation where we suss this out.
Fair enough.
And Theodos goes, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about that being my particular reflection. I prefer getting rid of all the slaves, but being the man who orders the general, that sounds like me."
Legba briefly exhibits a cloak trait. Because, Legba cogitates with a different mannerism. The cloak strokes his chin. So then he leans on the cane and he shifts his hat a little bit. And he says, "This is enough for me."
He nods. He's like, "I'm glad."
And he says, "Lycurgus, would you ask anything of Legba?"
"Send me back so I may pass judgment on those awaiting it."
"So be it."
Sheathes his sword, salutes, and is gone. Actually, he probably isn't gone. He probably has to walk. But fortunately, he's here at the Nile. He's like, "Listen, getting back to Sparta, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. We'll be fine."
But Legba can send him back. No, it would be he would open a way.
Okay, sure, that works.
He's the opener way. He asked to be sent back. Legba asked him, "What did he want?" He said, "Send me back." Legba's not going to say, "Go ahead and get back."
Okay, get walking.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. That works too.
Better kick rocks. No, so a portal opens the way, we've seen it in the physical, right?
Yep.
But here in the astral, right? Legba opens a way for Lycurgus to go right back through.
I dig it. Theodos looks back and it's like, "Well, this is actually personally enriching, and I might have to think about that being my representation. Interesting. Or at least perhaps just here, wearing this guise? Did I give it a Mediterranean? Interesting."
So what do you do with the people you liberate?
Mama Sarah's just been sitting here with her cane, just waiting. It's like, I'm going to ask that question again.
Good.
Well, usually food, clothing, and well, I can't say return, but a place where they can be. North is no longer as safe as it was. England is passable, and is usually far enough from oppressors, though the tyrants have a stronghold out that way. So
They do.
There is discussion, if that appeals to you, Baba Sarah, before they are sent somewhere.
And they have a voice in this discussion?
Yes, though unfortunately not always the most educated decision. Their options are few, and much of them take a guess on where they will live best.
I'm satisfied.
And you, Max?
I really wanted to know who you've liberated. How many? From where?
Not. I think he says not enough, and truthfully, not many. I think we count about 200 currently, but we are less interested. We are less focused on individual liberation and more of sudden and total violent abolition. But we are continually stymied. Myself, I used to sit. I used to sit in judgment in the Diamond Order, and things did not move in the correct direction quickly enough for me or for my associates. And wisdom called me to make other actions. So that is what I am doing. Unfortunately, I am stymied both by the Diamond Order and the Seers, both with reasons to continue slavery. Both kind of pauses and looks and says, here, assuming you all are, from America and elsewhere. Unfortunately, slavery stands as one of the foundational layers of tyranny. And just checking real quick. Oh, okay, he blinked. I couldn't tell if Roth had frozen or not.
No.
Have we heard enough?
Ligma nods. He says, I believe so. I have more questions, but I think that we can trust.
But much as I love this environ, this is not a suitable, quiet place to speak. Anybody can be anywhere, and then he kind of pats each of the revolutionary soldiers who disappear. You guys recognize a dispelling, or rather the ending of a spell. We will need to meet somewhere, well, more secure and safe. I will not ask to visit you all, nor would I wish to. Sympathetic connections and memory are very, very easy to get to. And he kind of looks right at Legba, recognizing another Mastigos, and saying, so if there is someplace in the material that is safe away from your interests and mine, I would meet you there and speak truthfully, face to face, where, at least as far as I can see, only the four of us will be aware of the location, time, and if you can be there now, I will make my best effort to be there now as well.
I don't remember. Craig does remember.
Mm-hmm.
Did Baba Sarah fully erase that sort of temple she made in the bluff there? Or did she just cover it over and it's still?
I thought you just sealed it. Yeah.
You just sealed
it up.
Yeah, so that we would have it later.
Oh, how about there?
That's awesome.
If out of character, if y'all are on board for that, Baba Sarah suggests that.
That sounds fun.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great for the story.
Okay.
It would also be really cool for Helen to get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
True. Hey, Legba, we can go to that one place. Max going.
The thing I made when I was
what?
Yes.
Remember that day when I was having a really, really bad day? Yeah. We can go there. Okay, sure. Max is like, the place that you had a really, really bad day and we're going there? Hang on. We need to discuss this. Now we're going. Come on. Yoink. Okay, I like that. So
And I know I do remember we kept a stone from there for just such a purpose.
Mhm.
yep, it's like, hey, we already carved this place. Yeah,
Yeah, we kept it because
it was representational.
no
And
reason to get rid of
notably,
it.
it was part of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Legba
so
could also create something like that
Mhm.
at this point.
Yep.
So
But no, I like the idea of meeting there because we have a throwback to a decade ago. Right?
yes, it's great.
So he nods and then looks at Legba and says, "Can you give me that connection?"
I can. So his question out of character: would we prefer that we get the rock, or do you want Legba to do something here in the astral that would preclude us from having to get the rock? Because I have an idea. It might be cool.
I mean, if we can just go there from here, that would be fine.
All right. So Legba says, you will need to eat this so that it will dissipate. And Legba holds out his hand, and then an apple appears in his palm.
Knowledge, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Your
chows
fingers
down.
are weird.
Mm-hmm. And this is delivering to him, of course, a knowledge of the location so that he will have to create the sympathy himself.
I like that. Okay, yeah, okay. So he kind of looks and recognizes. I imagine it's effectively a memory, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
cut everything out of it other than the place.
Yep.
And so he chows down on an apple and pauses and goes, "Oh, I understand." And then he winks out of existence.
Fantastic. Cool.
So, do you all speak amongst yourselves real quick?
Yes, absolutely. Legba will move his hand so that we can all walk into the sands a little bit away from the bank, just in case there's eavesdropping. Who knows who the crocodiles are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Could be somebody's familiar who's waiting in the water and they got their senses there. There's all kinds of things going on. And then he'll say, "Are we ready?"
I think so.
I believe so.
It may be disorienting if I do this before you've returned to your bodies. If you're okay with it, we will just do that.
It's a new experience.
All right. So then Legba says, "One moment." And, you're used to the loading animation in Legba, right? Where he's just like paused there. He's leaning on his cane. And then he shifts into the physical so that he can then teleport them there.
I like it.
Choosing, of course, to teleport instead of opening a way just because of the time-sensitive nature and understanding that he doesn't want to keep them waiting, and he did agree to go there right now. So otherwise, he would travel there in the astral and find it, and open the portal and all that.
I dig it. I like it.
Cool.
So the three of you, more or less, I feel like for Bulbasaur and Max, it's a double sense of load screens tumbling through your senses to appear out in the nice and shiny, I think we are in August, southwest sun, beside big red buttes. And standing there in kind of what you might expect, kind of standard New York attire.
New York City.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you at home who are like, dude, why does Drew always pick New York City? It's because of the Rookery. It's just a reference every time. And that way I don't have to think of other cities. I mean, we could say DC too, but it's just from New York. And yeah.
All cities have been influenced by New York. I mean, I'm not making an ethnocentric comparison, but in terms of city planning, so many things have happened in New York that they've influenced the structure of cities everywhere. So
it is a very formative city. Is a man, and he is as nondescript as his clothing is very normal.
This
His
is intentional.
yes.
So good. Yeah.
Brown hair, brown eyes, appropriate amount of facial hair, because I can't remember what people were doing then. Probably bigger beards. I can't remember. And just standing, hands clasped in front of him. Yeah. And then kind of has a double take on Baba Sarah, because Max looks like Max, Helena looks like Max, Papa Legba looks like Papa Legba, and Baba Sarah looks much more crone-ish in the tomatoes, but still manages to be very crone. It's like, that is a mythological being just appearing before me. And it's just like, oh, okay. And then like the little bit of apprehension, nobody else shows up, appearing literally out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then he walks forward and offers his hand out to Papa Legba, because to offer his hand to the ladies would be inappropriate. They can offer their hands. But I am Rael. And then actually pauses with his hand out and shaking to shake Papa Legba's. Is looking at Helena.
I know you.
Michael.
Not anymore.
It's okay. I was not Rael. So we will just leave that behind us both.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You definitely recognize this guy. This guy was a lictor in the silver.
Nice.
Right.
As you said.
Yeah. Like
As
he
you said,
literally was sitting.
He was passing judgment.
Correct. He probably left before you did. He left with some significant kerfluffle, because he's a little bit more higher up in the silver ladder, and was making big stuff about abolition movement, and he was like, for a lot of the Diamond Order later, it's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be involved in politics. He's like, we should be involved in politics, and we should be stopping this thing, because it is literally the basis of tyranny. And a lot of them were like, well, no, it's just one of the rungs on the ladder. He's like, fuck that. So he's out.
Good for him.
Yep.
I mean, look, as a person with cosmic power, right? It makes sense for them to have that disaffected perspective. I'm not saying it makes moral sense, but it is not absurd for some of them to think of it that way. And
there are probably, and this is, just one of those things, there are probably men and women who were once slaves who awoke and joined the silver ladder and were like, no, it's the freaking Mastigos at who's like, no, it was this trial that I went through and it awoke it awoke me, and they're like, it's fine, I went through it, you can go through it too. It's like, wait, hang on, that's not how this works. But that's a whole other thing. So yes, shakes hands, meets, and looks about. He's, the way you described and spoke of this place, I was expecting a little bit more than nowhere.
Theo pops her hands and pulls them apart, and a door opens up.
I see. How silly of me.
A smile.
After you.
And just like, and then.
And like, as soon as we landed here, Helena just put up a sort of environmental shield because it's too hot. She's overdressed for this.
Yeah. This is ridiculous. You didn't bring a parasol.
No, she would get the rest of you too if you were amenable to it, but sort of a quick glance to you to check in. But there's no need to be hot.
Yeah, no. There's a reason mages don't usually keep wisdom 8 and above. They're like, I don't need to be this warm. I can just walk out in the rainstorm without an umbrella. This is fine. I could use some magic for this.
So inside there's all the card furniture and stuff like that,
Yep.
sort of extruded from the ground, and
It
shelves and
is
stuff.
chilly cool in here
And
because
I think she also left the 2 graves open, where
Yeah.
oh, where
like
she'd
the
slept. Oh my god, I'd
Mhm.
forgotten about that. Yes. Yeah. So like Riel motions for you all to lead in and follows in, and this is just shift. It's just like things happened here, but I don't, it's fine.
Don't question it.
No. Oh, well. And that's where we'll leave it.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll talk more about Rael and some shenanigans later, but it's been a while. It's been like 50 some episodes and something like that, but we're gonna go on a break, and we'll be back in a little bit, and then you guys can catch us next week.
All
So-
right. Later.
Oh, yeah. Which means, come by Discord, www.yeetinto.space, and Patreon is www.staylucky.club. And we'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.